Hello and welcome back to the Superhuman Podcast. Today's guests are the founders of Vita Veda, a transformative leadership company helping high-performing founders and executives scale without burnout. Through their signature Be the Change retreat, they blend Eastern wisdom with Western strategy, combining breathwork, yoga philosophy, and decision-making frameworks to help leaders regain control of their time, sharpen their clarity, and lead with resilience. If you're scaling fast and you feel a lot of pressure, this conversation might help you reset your system and rethink how you lead. We're probably going to discuss some concepts from yoga and breath work. So I'm really excited and let's get into it. Did I miss anything, guys?
No, that was wonderful. Thank you, Marty. You did a great intro for us. I was like, whew.
Beautiful
Beautiful.
presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, so we were just talking, before we started recording that, me, I'm from the Silicon Valley. I know a lot of founders and kind of very familiar to the high high-paced tech culture.
Mm,
And a lot of people around here, it seems like they get a lot done with this really, really strong drive. And, Eastern philosophy and yoga, I think of detachment,
mm,
being with the present. And so, while Eastern philosophy is about that detachment, being with the present, it seems like to be a very motivated person, it might take a lot of attachment to your mission or goal. It
mm.
might take a lot of dissatisfaction with the present in the status quo and striving for a certain future. So I really want to know what is the best way to balance this Western hustle and striving with the Eastern principles of non-attachment and inner peace?
Great question. Can I go first?
Of course you can.
Just because I had this somewhat around this conversation with a client a couple of days ago. So the phrase that jumps to mind for me is commitment without attachment. So I think there's an important distinction between a commitment and attachment. Attachment is gripping on to a specific outcome and having an expectation of how it has to turn out. Whereas commitment is, in my opinion, putting all that you can put into something and also accepting that you do not have total control of the outcome. So kind of showing up, putting in that motivation, discipline for the parts that you do have charge over, and then releasing onto the attachment of the outcome or the specific, the way it looks, so to speak. And the second point is, I think, the really important shift, because I totally agree with you. It's not about relinquishing goals and it's not about relinquishing motivation or productivity. I think they're fantastic. But I think one of the big factors that's missing for founders who are in that kind of scale fast momentum is they always have a to-do list, but they don't have a done list. So they're not acknowledging what they've already created.
Mhm.
Although they are doing a lot, they aren't acknowledging what has been done. And so they're the inner dissatisfaction with constantly feeling like there's more to do, but never feeling satisfied with what has been done. So yeah, I'm certainly not a proponent of like giving up goals. But I think it's about honoring and acknowledging what you are creating and achieving so that we don't just feel like we're in a hamster wheel of never ending striving. That would be my piece.
I'll tackle it from a little bit more philosophical way, and I'll bring the story that what popped up was when Buddha got enlightened. He was sitting under the tree, and he heard a guitarist and his disciple floating down the river. And the master of the guitar was like, if you tense the string too hard, it's gonna snap. If you tense
Mm,
it too low, you won't be able to play. So it's about a balance, as Ciara was aiming towards as well. Like balance your thing. So if you push, your string is gonna snap and you're gonna lose your business with a burnout. You're gonna spend all your time, maybe the rest of your life, trying to recover. And if you don't tense it at all, just being shanty, well, you ain't getting anywhere. So it's about finding a balance. And how do you find that balance? You start using tools like breath work, gentle meditation. I like to call it contemplation rather than meditation. So if you can, instead of sitting and doing nothing, take a time, 15 minutes, 5 minutes a day, and just start observing your thoughts. Okay, where am I going? Start visualizing as well. See a clear path, and then execute from it.
Really nice.
Okay. Yeah, I really like that that Buddha story. Um, I actually took a class over here on like Eastern religions, and they didn't go over that story, but I wish they did. That's actually really useful. Thank you.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. So, you know, yeah, so we're talking about founders, not necessarily, not you guys target founders specifically. And so, that's a very unique thing about your business is that you actually use these Eastern principles and techniques, breath work and yoga to turn people into better leaders.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering what's the connection between, this kind of inner peace, yoga, breath work to leadership, to leading other people, to driving some kind of mission. What's the connection between that and the Vita Veda?
You want to go first again, or ladies first?
Yeah, I can do.
Go on.
I think for me, the connection is self-leadership. If you aren't able to lead yourself with a steady mind and a regulated nervous system, I don't think really you're in any position to successfully and or sustainably lead anybody else. So I think transformational leadership is where your life is your philosophy, and the way you conduct yourself day to day is that living example for your team members, for your colleagues, for whoever it is that you're leading. So for me, it very much starts as an internal journey, because you can say, what you want. You can have words about leadership and return on investment or trust and transparency. But if you don't embody that, it's empty. And it just, there's an incongruency and a lack of integrity between what you say and what you do. And for me personally, the most powerful and transformational leaders I've come across are the people that live what they teach and teach what they live, not one or the other. So that's for me the connection.
Yeah, I would tackle it the same way and say that if your cup isn't full, you have nothing to give. So if you want to be a passionate leader, you need to be filled with passion. If you want to be a thoughtful leader, you have to have some things to think about. So, and how do you cultivate that? Well, you start by listening and you start by focusing in on yourself.
Nice.
I'm like, yeah, nice.
If your cup isn't full, you have nothing else to give.
Summed it up. Summed it up.
Wow. Yeah, Oscar coming in with these these really powerful metaphors today. That's awesome. Yeah, so I guess another question I had was, we're talking about kind of like, problems that founders have and burnout we were talking about. So what are like the things that kind of just build up over time that you don't see coming when you're a founder? Like these kind of hidden maybe patterns or habits or belief that maybe over time you don't realize it in the moment, but burn out a founder. Because I think an important thing, maybe listeners would want to know about is like what am I not taking care of that is silently, killing me. It's like I know I got to fix this. I know I got to fix this. But then what people don't even think about, what people, don't even consider.
I think a lot of people overlook sleep. So your sleep starts to be nagged about. You're sleeping less and less and less and less and less. And that will be an early sign. Passion starts to disappear. All of a sudden, like it feels like a drag. You're not enjoying it anymore, even though there is a lot of good to be said about the hustle and the grind. But when passion starts to seep out, your sleep starts to get worse, easily irritated. This is early signs, I'd say.
Yeah, to add on sleep for sure. And I think not only less sleep, but not deep sleep, not restful sleep. Cognitive function is a big one as well. So I worked with a client for a long time who, she just was really struggling to complete anything. So she'd keep setting out with the best of intentions to kind of get, so much done in the week. And before she knows it, she needs a nap, or she's scrolling, or she's checking emails. And a lot of this kind of context switching and not being able to concentrate on a single task to completion. I think that's a key one. And to tag on to what you said about passion, and to circle back to that point before, of when you stop feeling satisfied or stop getting a kind of sense of satisfaction from what you're doing, and it kind of starts to be in that autopilot phase where you're just doing for the sake of doing, but not actually kind of recognizing, oh, nice, that was a good win, or that was a great breakthrough, or wow, that took us a while to achieve, or, whatever it is. So they can be some. And then I'd say from my personal experience, emotional reactivity would be a big one, and that can take many shapes and sizes. So some people watching this might be thinking, but I'm not an emotional person. If you're not kind of overtly emotional or having kind of breaking down in tears, but kind of scrolling, procrastinating, snacking, when you know what you should be getting on with, but you just aren't, snapping at your friends or your partner, withdrawing, they're all examples of emotional reactivity as well, even though they might be a little bit more subtle and harder to spot.
And I would say there are clear signs that your nervous system is running on your sympathetic nervous system. So your fight or flight, you're constantly overly pumped with cortisol and constantly in this agitated state. And as Ciara said, it will take many different forms, but the zen of your day is gone.
Yeah, I do feel like when I'm more stressed, I tend to like scroll more, or like be it, LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever, snack, and this kinds of comes up. And you said it's because of the parasympathetic nervous system is activated?
Almost the sympathetic nervous system.
Oh,
So your parasympathetic is your rest and digest.
okay. Parasympathetic, rest and digest.
Sympathetic, fight or flight. A funny little trick that you can do when your left nostril is open, more air can flow through it. You're in a parasympathetic nervous system. When your right nostril is more dominant, airflow is more there, and you're in a sympathetic nervous system response. This switched about 60 to 90 minutes through the day, but with some yoga practices, you can change it. So you can biohack your nervous system,
Okay.
which is autonomic by default, but breathing would be one of the few things that could hack it. That and coffee.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you for telling me about that. That's pretty awesome.
Just to add in with the scrolling as well, I think it's worth noting that, a lot of these tactics, whether that's scrolling or snacking or, whatever it is for each person, it's an attempt to regulate the nervous system. So even though that's maybe not consciously what we're doing, when we reach for these different habits, it's to try and calm ourselves down. And you have a lovely...
Yeah, one of my teachers always said that most people in the world, especially the Western world, they have a few tools to their disposal to calm down. It's Netflix, wine, and weed. And none of them are actually regulating your nervous system in the good way. But that's the tools we've been given by the society and our peers. And we've been like, okay, but a glass of wine when I come home, that's okay. But what you maybe really needed to do is to sit down and maybe contemplate, okay, what am I consciously fleeing from now? What am I avoiding? And then you start, okay, well, this is actually the emotion of starting to feel drained or overworked or not satisfied. And okay, and how can we work with that? And then we come into your expertise.
Yeah, that I was actually going for the checking in and checking out.
Oh, you have to tell me that.
No, well, it was just with the different
Ah, okay, okay.
tools. You're either checking in or checking out. So when we kind of come home and reach for a big glass of wine or a spliff or Netflix, it's to kind of check out, if we've had a busy full on day with lots of
Okay.
stimulation, it's to check out. Whereas practices such as breathing or meditation,
Contemplation, journaling, that checking
journaling,
in.
it's a way to check in.
Yeah.
There you go, Matty.
Oh no, no, I was just
Rolling.
verbally
Love
It's
that.
beautiful. No, but I think it's easy to feel like I deserve to check out, and you feel as though
Mm,
how many times during our relationship I've said like, I'm gonna spoil
Spoil
myself with
myself.
this, and spoil is a really funny word because what does it mean when food gets spoiled?
Mm.
It's get shitty, right? When I say I'm gonna spoil myself, so and then I'm drinking a glass of wine or a Coca-Cola or some chocolate, like I'm spoiling myself. Yeah, you are literally spoiling yourself in your temple.
Mm.
So avoid doing that. And if you want to spoil yourself, sit down, take a few deep breaths, check in, maybe do some eye gazing with a partner if you have one.
okay.
Maybe that's wine, like, ah. Also worth mentioning, and I always like to say, it's about balance, as we said in the beginning. So I think it more comes down to intention. If you want to enjoy those things, we still do, but just know why you're doing it and do it intentionally.
Ah,
And
uh-huh.
it's more about not kind of coming in and relying on getting drunk or getting high to be able to calm down. Getting high is really cool, like it's fun, but I want to be able to do that intentionally, to enjoy a good conversation or listen to music or whatever, as opposed to have to do it because I don't have any other way to calm myself down or deal with stress. So I always just like to caveat that, because we're not trying to say that we're like monks and we never do any of these things,
Okay.
because we do. It's about balance. But I think it just comes down to intention. So you're choosing to do those things rather than relying on those things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the first thing I think of is like, when your body, I guess, feels that those bad things, it's like trying to tell you something. And then
Mm.
maybe like you guys are saying like, you take the three tools. It was Netflix, wine, and weed. You take
Yeah.
the Yeah, you take the three tools and then you forget about it instead of like trying to answer what your body's saying to you, like actually
I,
heed the
I, I feel as,
call.
I feel as though those three tools are very similar to what Western pharma is today as well. Like treat the symptom,
Mm.
but you never get to the root of why you're actually sick.
Yeah, yeah, no, big time. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and eye gazing with your partner. I have a girlfriend out here. We've been dating for about 2 years. Eye gazing, is that something we should look into? What are the benefits
Look
of that?
into, pardon the pun.
I think it's a powerful practice. I think eye contact in general can be
Mm.
quite challenging, especially a lot of people now, you're looking in your phone all day. But to actually just sit down, take a few deep breaths, and actually just look into your partner's eyes, it really, really, really gives the synergy and the connection. And the funniest part of all, which I've realized a few times when we looked into our eyes, in the little black part, the iris, I think the black part is the iris, is it?
Oh, pupil, or
The
maybe Iris
pupil.
is the official
I
name.
think the pupil is the black part.
Oh.
That becomes like a little mirror, so you will literally see yourself in your partner's eyes, which is like, okay, well,
As a
yeah,
reflection
which is
and kind of energetically.
yeah, who is looking
It
out?
can be quite confronting at first, or it's not something we do that often in daily life, so it can be quite a powerful practice. And
We've probably guided hundreds of people through eye gazing,
yeah,
and there's always giggles. People feel uncomfortable.
people
Well,
cry.
people start crying. So, oh my God, I've never truly seen you like this. No, or I've never actually truly like you. Oh, you're also a human being.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Fears, you get desires, you get wants. Okay, wow.
Imagine we just went silent instead for like 5 minutes. Oh, funny.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for putting me on that. I heard about it once or twice, but if you guys are doing it, it's got to be legit. So, I guess switching subjects a little bit. Um, So I've seen in your guys' profiles that you guys have traveled around the world, particularly to India, and I'm wondering, because every single time I travel, I feel like I learn something about a different culture that I'm like, oh my goodness, I wasn't even thinking about implementing something like this in my life.
Mm.
Especially to when I travel to Europe, I see how you guys are a lot more relaxed than here. You guys take your time a little more. And that kind of made me realize some things I was maybe doing wrong with my American lifestyle. But so having been around the world, uh, what are things that, maybe us living in the West, maybe, you can be critical of America, where most of my viewers are from and myself too. What are things that maybe we take for granted that maybe we shouldn't? Um, and like how we could learn from how other people in the world are living their lives and the way they go about things, what be it India or I think you guys have been to Spain.
Mm.
What are we missing out on? What are we
Do
not considering? Yeah.
you want to go?
I can speak for Sweden, which I think we try to mimic America a lot. I think we become extremely self-obsessed and individualistic. So we lose community. We become
Mm.
very very isolated. I think Sweden is one of the places where like you people have very few friends. Circles are small, and the classic one, like you stand at the bus stop, people are standing far and few between.
Mm.
You don't sit close to people on the bus. You don't talk to strangers. I think the social game can become so serious in the West, so you forget that it's just a play. I love what Shakespeare said. The whole stage, the whole world is a stage, and all the men and women merely players. And we get so caught up in our little act that we forget that it's just it's
A
all fun and
play,
game. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a play.
I think on the other side of that, for me to kind of comment on what India's taught me is the very opposite. Like there's so many people. So I've been on trains through India and like, random families will take you in and start to feed you and like just watching all the things that you do because it's so different. And I think, yeah, it's the total opposite. It's like not so caught up in the individual, which
Mm.
obviously has its own frustrations and challenges as well. But for me, that was very liberating. And I think the other thing India taught me was to embrace chaos and let go of expectations, to kind of touch on what we were talking about earlier. And I think a great example of that is the way that they relate to time, because the train might be 2 hours late or it might be 2 days late. And like that's just how it
Mm.
is. Whereas in the West, and it's great that things run and they run efficiently and that's wonderful.
That was a culture shock coming from Sweden because we we honor time a lot. So when time
Yeah.
wasn't, it was like, why do we even have a timetable? If it doesn't matter, then
And I think one of the lessons in that for me, whilst traveling, because obviously it's not the same. If I need to get to work or, I need to be getting to an appointment, it's different. But to just embrace, like, okay, this is what's happening right now. Like, the train is 2 days late. I could really work myself up and get super angry about this, or I could accept that this is the situation. Um, and I think once in a train booking office, I walked in and there was like hundreds of people queuing up in India, and all of the desks where the clerks that was from the book you read yesterday would be sat, like all had the blinds pulled down. And I looked through, and all of the staff members that worked in the train station office were having a tea break. Meanwhile, there's hundreds of people waiting in line to get their train tickets, but nobody is complaining. People are just stood there like calmly waiting.
Mm.
And part of the reason it's said in India that's the case is because they firmly believe in reincarnation. So
Oh.
the ideology is we're going to be here for eternity anyway, like what's the rush? Whereas I think in the West, it's like I had my appointment at 10 and it's 10:01. Like what's going on?
Yeah.
And people are so like het up about it. So yeah, I found that quite refreshing and frustrating as well in India.
Yeah, uh yeah, I mean the tie between, belief in reincarnation and, not taking, you know, prudency, is that what it's called? What's it called when you're like on time? Is that called being prudent?
No, punctual.
Punctual. Goodness.
Yeah. I think prude. Anyway, I don't know.
I think I mean something else. Yeah, and being punctual. I mean that makes sense. Like,
Mm,
if you have an entire life, it's like why I need to do it now? I never made that connection there. That's
mm.
cool. But okay, no, thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to get out of that question, and that was pretty enlightening. Um,
Nice.
and so, okay, we're talking about we've been talking about burnout a lot, and what I've noticed is I think a lot of people maybe see burnout in different ways. And a lot of times, like, I can't even tell if I'm truly burned out. Like, I'm like, am I just being lazy? Am I just being a little bit frustrated? Can I push through this?
Mm,
Would I feel better actually if I do it anyway? And I
mm.
don't, but there's obviously an inevitable point where your body just can't handle. Like, theoretically, I feel like burnout has to exist. So, like, how do you guys describe burnout? And then like I want to know, how do you know when you're really burned out versus I'm just, I can push through this and I should push through this.
Yeah,
When do I know I'm really burned out? And what does that look like? What does that mean?
it's a good question.
I think when you have reached that point, you will know. Like you will have to start sleeping 14, 15, 16 hours a day. Motivation will
Hmm.
be plummeted. If your sleep has been affected as well, you might start to have uh, light psychosis. So the definition of psychosis is changed worldview. So
Hmm.
all of a sudden, what appeared normal might start to be
Mm.
the veil between what's actually here and what your mind starts imagining might be a little bit shaken. So you'll start to have unreasonable fears, maybe symptoms of like what are they called? The thoughts that are the intrusive thoughts, but you
Yeah.
start not to be able to control them. Your mind is what's the quote from
And
the Upanishads? The mind makes a poor master, but a good servant.
mm.
And when your mind has become the full master of your life and it runs you to the ground, you will know, you will be able, the more you listen to yourself and the more aware you become of yourself, you will know if it's just your inner bitch complaining or if this is actually something that you can climb. Oh.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It does take a certain level of self-awareness, which is why I think mentorship and coaching, for me at least, has been so valuable because then you've got an outside eye to be like, yeah, that's reasonable, or no, that's, I've heard this, you're in a bit of a cycle here. To give some kind of tangible examples, I've had a client that one day said something along the lines of, if I carry on, I'm going to end up in hospital. But the idea of 7 days in hospital doing nothing else sounds really nice right about now. And I was like, oh my goodness. So yeah, I think when hospital starts to sound appealing, that should be a little warning sign. I think maybe some other factors would be knowing where this is where the self-awareness comes in, of knowing where your starting point is. So in relation to what you said of, how do I know if I'm just avoiding something or being lazy? Well, in my case, for example, when I'm out of balance, I overdo. So I'm a doing person. So slowing down for me is challenging. So I know that that's my default. So that kind of lets me know, which step to take. Whereas if I naturally avoid action because I find it uncomfortable, then that's my baseline. Does that make sense? I don't think I'm being very clear there, but it's kind of like where you start from to kind of decipher if you are avoiding something uncomfortable or not. For me, doing action isn't uncomfortable. Slowing down is uncomfortable. or, you know,
Mm,
vice versa. So I think it's about knowing where your default is to decipher, is
mm.
this something I'm just not doing because it's a bit tricky or it's out of my comfort zone, or do I actually need to rest here? Or
And speaking of experience, meeting a lot of founders, m- if you have already come to that point, your default is probably not being lazy.
yeah,
Mm.
true.
Like you are a doer already. You know what it takes to get to the mountain. You just need a little bit of guidance to get there. And if you start feeling the signs of like, oh my God, I have slept poorly for a couple of weeks
Mm.
now. I have extreme brain fog. Like, okay, maybe I should let a little bit off the gas.
Yes, and I think there's also something to be said for that doing mentality, and this has been my shift of lately, is going to get you so far, but in order for really big, like 10x leaps, it requires empty space and innovative thinking, which you can't access if you're constantly busy and ticking off a to-do
Mm.
list. So, yeah, I guess it depends at what level of leadership as well, and what kind of problem you're trying to solve. Because if it
Mhm.
requires deep thought, that automatically requires
Mm.
deep space or empty space.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that definitely resonates. Because I feel like, yeah, with the doing, I think I am understanding that where you're just doing, or like who said the it was such a great quote from the Upanishads. The mind is a poor master but a good servant. Someone said
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
and I could like, yeah, I mean, to your guys' point, me and I think other people agree with this, but you can just get so caught up in just the grind. Like, I guess it's maybe some kind of dopamine cycle.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. And
but
cortisol.
yeah, just like doing it. And then when you just like zoom out and you're like, wait, why am I doing this?
Mhm.
I think that's maybe important. And then also especially for an entrepreneur, because I think like isn't the whole point of entrepreneurship, being a founder is you're thinking innovatively, you're solving a problem that hasn't been solved. And
Exactly.
I think you are kind of supposed to be that why in the economy, you know?
Yeah, totally. An excellent point. When you're trying to solve something that hasn't been solved, it really requires deep inner thought.
Yeah.
It requires strategic thinking, problem solving, and you cannot do that amongst, constant Slack notifications, WhatsApp pings, meetings, emails, coffees. Like, um, yeah, it's a nightmare.
What's the cliche one? Only when the mind is quiet can the soul speak.
Mm.
You're
Or
a quote fountain.
I have a little box here.
Chinese cookies.
I actually write them. Oh.
That would be a good little side hustle. Oh, funny.
Only when the mind is silent can the soul speak. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's great. Because I mean, yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, maybe you also should be somewhat in touch with, how you feel in the human condition to like recognize, like, again, like recognize what problems are being solved, not just
Yeah,
solving them. So
totally.
that's
Yeah.
a really cool connection there between like why you should be able to zoom out and think clearly, and not just do, especially if you're a founder. And that's well, that's I mean, that justifies, like that your work is really valuable, I think. I mean, if I was a founder, I would definitely want that,
Mm.
especially with that justification. That's really cool.
I think our conscious awareness can work on two fields. One is the horizontal, which goes out, and that's when you're
In the
interacting with the world.
world. Yeah.
And then
Mm,
there is the vertical, as when your consciousness or your awareness goes within and you start listening, okay, what's actually going on? And you're gonna have to sift through the shallow sounds of the mind, which is what am I gonna do today? Oh my God, I wonder what the boss thought, or "Oof, I wonder what they
Do I
said.
look good in these jeans?
Exactly. When you sift through all of that and maybe some cringes of what happened when you were, I don't know, 12 and made something awkward in school, you'll say, oh, did that happen? When you start sift through your library and you get some order in it, you'll start be able to like, okay, and then from another quote from Terence McKenna, half of the time when you think that you're thinking, you're actually listening. So you start to be aware of that. Okay, I'm not actually the thinker of this thought. I'm just simply listening. And when you start to get good at listening, golden nuggets will start sifting through, and you'll be able to be like, oh my God, that was an amazing thing. And you don't know where it came from. And if you didn't pay attention, you would have lost it.
Hmm.
Sorry. And that's where vision comes in. I think that's really important also, to ensure that the doing that you're carrying out is actually carrying you towards where you want to go. Otherwise, you end up just doing for the sake of doing, but you're not sure if it's actually in the right direction.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I mean, personally, that's just personally really valuable to me. I've been trying to sort that out recently. Kind of got caught in like I was just doing what I thought was valuable, and I zoomed out and I was like, is this even, really valuable? Is this even leading to a future that is even near, the optimal thing for me? Have I considered why I'm doing what I'm doing? And
Really
so
nice.
this
Good
has
question.
been really enlightening. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to hold you guys for too long, so I'm gonna ask one more question. Kind of a nice, I think, question to end with, so that people could have something they can take away, which is, what's something that, the everyday person can do right now to improve their breath, improve, how they carry out their life, and generally reduce stress, even if they're not a founder, just any listener to this podcast, any technique or cool little nugget of information.
I would say breathe less. Controversial. I'm gonna mic drop. Breathe less.
And we close that.
So I think most of us are breathing very, very shallow. You take about 30,000 breaths on a day, 25,000. So you're breathing very, very shallow and rapidly, which makes your body ability to use oxygen not so efficient, because you got an imbalance with CO2 and oxygen. So you can't really optimize the use of oxygen, which will lead to brain fog. So I'd start by bringing one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest, observing where the breath is going. Are you feeling that the hand on your chest is expanding and you're breathing with your shoulders? Probably going to lead to some headache. Or is the hand on your belly expanding? And if it's the hand on the chest, make sure that it brings down to the belly, so you use your diaphragm. 70% of your respiratory system is that beautiful little thing. 28% is basically the little muscles in between your rib cage. And then you have about 2% here, accessory muscles, neck. And so basically start breathing with the diaphragm, start breathing a little bit less. So instead of taking 25,000 breaths every single day, see if you can bring it down to 18,000. So you count, inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, short pause at the top, and then exhale 4, 3, 2, 1, short pause at the bottom, and then resume. Use your fingers. Each finger has 3 sections. As you have done your first inhale, you move your thumb down. Then you do another breath in, breath out.
It's like your own abacus.
Inhale again. So you can count on your finger, 3, 6, 9, 12. Do 12 rounds every single day. And you start rewiring your default breathing pattern. And by that, you will have a lot better breathing, smoother, soothed nervous system.
And from the mind point of view, I would just say one thing, which would be stop believing everything your mind tells you. Just because it happens in your head doesn't make it true. So yeah, and maybe just simply with the breathing, starting to pay attention to your breathing first and foremost, because so much of it is unconscious, isn't it? So
start with 12 rounds every day.
Hmm.
And you can build from there as you get more and more comfortable as actually sitting in the stillness.
You think it's good to do that in the morning or like at night, like midday?
This is a breath work I would see as a balancing breath work. So you can do it morning, afternoon, midday,
Okay.
or evenings. That would be a breath work that I would recommend. If you start feeling like, okay, I'm getting lost in the sauce, sit down and do it. Morning, obviously, it's good to protect yourself and set up the boundary for the day. So it's always good to do a short practice in the morning. This is gonna take you a couple of minutes at the most. If you can sit on the floor, cross-legged,
Mm.
sit in a chair. Uh, and there is no mysticism with sitting cross-legged. It's just that it gives you the best base when you sit on the floor. I was always in the beginning like, oh my God, I wonder what's the magic with cross-legged. Okay.
Yeah. I
After
was just
sitting
thinking that.
hours and hours of sitting on the floor, it's like, okay, this is the best way. This is
It's
the
grounding as well, like
I,
you're connected to the
you,
floor.
you try
Yeah, yeah,
around
yeah,
and
for
then you
sure.
realize that okay, cross-legged is the easiest one.
Yeah.
Preferably stack heel in front of heel.
Yeah, man.
Just on the when to do the breathing, I would say as well, when you need it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I think that's something good to leave the viewers with. So, yeah, this was a really deep episode. Ciara and Oscar reminding us that, scaling, we think of strategy, we think of ROI, we might think of all these metrics and technologies, but it starts with self-regulation. It starts with, controlling yourself before you control anything else, I guess.
Hmm.
Clarity, and then, knowing yourself and being in control of yourself, maybe enough to have the courage to do things, so we talked a lot about breath work. We even went into some eye gazing, which was interesting. It's like if you're a tech bro, you can think of it like your nervous system kind of is your operating system, and
Mm,
that's I think that's a good way of thinking about it. So,
yeah, definitely.
and burnout, kind of how to see that, and know the misalignment there. Um,
Mm.
only when the mind is quiet, I guess, can the soul speak. And I guess only when the mind is quiet can your vision speak, maybe.
Exactly.
Um, so that kind of like inner guiding voice finally comes out after maybe all the busy work, or we got to respond to this email. So that's really insightful. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, if any of this hits home, maybe share this podcast with someone who's running a little fast, losing breath, your tech bro cousin or something, your crypto, I don't know. Or if
Yeah.
that's you, then watch this again. But yeah. So stay focused, stay intentional,
Mm.
stay superhuman. Peace.
Peace.